we've had time to digest the shock and indeed the disappointment of the judicial hearing review knockback, it is time to look forwards. Now, of course, as Cherie Blair said, Steve, it was just one angle of attack. In fact, this is not the end, it's the beginning. What's going to happen now?
Okay, so I think there's what I've noticed over the last couple of days at the show, V, is that there's a sort of individual. What can individuals do? People watching this, lots of people have come up to me. What do I do? So if we tackle that first, and then we'll look at, from a tenant tax coalition point of view, what are we planning to do? So the first thing I'd say is I've spoken to a lot of people now, and all over social media, where people are basically selling up. They made a decision that it's the time to sell because of the tenant tax, and I would just recommend a little bit of caution, because I believe that this will be overturned or the retrospective nature will be removed. It's not come into force yet. April 2017 is actually when the cash register starts ticking in terms of when it's going to start costing people money. It's only going to be 25%. It's not coming into full force, and that won't be payable until January 2019. So there's a long time between where we are now and January 2019. So, as frustrating as it might be, and as angry as people are getting, I don't think this is the time for a knee-jerk reaction. So one practical step would be to just, hold fire, see how things play out. We've got a lot of things that we're going to be doing, working with other organisations that we'll talk about in a minute. But yes, the legal route is dead, we know that. Better to know now, frankly, than in 2 years' time and after £500,000 worth of legal fees. So actually, whilst it was a disappointment, I'd much rather know now, and I think all of our supporters would much rather know now. So we can put 100% of our efforts into making other changes, fighting it politically, and in other ways. So hold fire. What can you do in your own business? Putting up rents. We know a lot of people are putting up rents. So we are preparing at the moment a very well crafted letter, a resource that will be on the tenanttax.co.uk website. I'm sure you'll share it on Property Tribes. It's a template letter, which is very well worded, for landlords to be able to send to tenants if they are going to choose to put their rents up, as we know many are or have done already. To don't just put rents up, let the tenants know why, and a direct correlation between why their rents are going up and the tenant tax. In the same way that every year there's a budget, taxes change on cigarettes, on alcohol, on petrol, and immediately when you go down the pub and you buy a pint of beer, it costs more because of the budget. And this is exactly the same. There's no difference. Why people resist the fact that this is a tenant tax that's going to be passed on to the end user, the consumer, sort of baffles me. It happens with cigarettes, alcohol and petrol. It's going to happen with this. It happens with most things. So, try and cut costs, try and increase the rents as much as you can, but explain the reasons for doing that. Prepare for it coming in, but don't decide, oh my God, end of the world, I'm going to sell up, because there's a lot of time between now, certainly in April, and then beyond there as well.
And also keep informed, it's so important, and
Absolutely.
to get the correct tax advice as well. One thing I would say, Steve, that although the legal challenge ultimately failed, I think it did an amazing job in terms of getting traction in the landlord community and creating awareness of this whole issue. It got so much press coverage, and I think it's been a great momentum builder to actually get more and more landlords on board and get them engaged with the topic, and the awareness that it created. It's been brilliant for that, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was when Chris and I started out. We'd never done anything like this before. We were feeling our way, and very early on what we realised is there's a lot of great organisations doing a lot of great work, but they're doing it in silos, and so the concept of a coalition was actually, I wrote a little kind of mission statement document back in January that I sent to Chris only, about bringing the industry together, creating a coalition under the tenant tax umbrella. And it's great to see that actually that started to happen. We've had different organisations who historically maybe have not worked particularly closely together, coming together under a common banner. So that was the first thing, and we're proud and pleased of that. And now's the time to build on that momentum, and that's definitely what we're going to be doing. We'll talk more about that in a minute. The second thing that, our observation is actually, as a community, as landlords, we're not very good at marketing. we're not very good at selling ourselves. We're the whipping boy. It used to be the bankers, but actually now it seems to be the landlords. Nobody loves the landlord. In fact, it's not true. 83% of tenants are more than satisfied with their private sector landlord. It's actually higher than local councils and the social housing sector, and that comes from the English Housing Survey. So 83% of tenants are actually happy. So why we're vilified, I think, is actually primarily down to us needing to get better at marketing, at branding, at promotion, and putting ourselves out there. And fighting back against the likes of Shelter and Crisis and those that are just bash the landlords. So the coalition is important going forward, and the marketing to the 2 million plus landlords that are out there, which most of them are sleepwalking into disaster, and we need to make them aware of this.
Indeed. And talking of the coalition, it's becoming more formal now, isn't it? It really is a group of industry stakeholders who are going to be working a lot closer together, even more so than before going forwards.
Absolutely, that's our intention. We had a panel debate yesterday with the Residential Landlords Association, the National Landlords Association, ALA, doing another one today. And there was general consensus in that discussion that we need to work together. We're talking about formalising that, and I hope within the next week to be able to report some really positive news on some practical action steps that those and other organisations like Property Tribes, like 118, like others, hopefully RICS, some of the mortgage companies, some of the big letting agencies, formalising what we're going to be doing, how we're going to be working together as a coalition to take the full force of our very clear argument. There's a compelling case for it to the corridors of power, to the press, to the media, and we're not going to let up. So I think coalition's important. The other thing we've been talking about is a Tenant Tax Awareness Week, and we picked a date of the 3rd to the 9th of April to have the Tenant Tax Awareness Week, because on the 5th of April 2017, that's actually when this tax starts. That's when people will start to be feeling it. So to have an awareness week that all the organisations are promoting, we can get out to accountants, we can hammer Shelter and others with lots of letters, we can make tenants aware of it, we can send letters, meet MPs, all of that sort of thing. So there's real magic in a date and a week. It focuses people's attention. So mark it in your diaries, 3rd to the 9th of April 2017, going to be Tenant Tax Awareness Week. And the coalition going to be working together, doing lots more things in the meantime, but actually that gives us a good focal point for the start, work towards for next year.
So just to finish, Steve, your tail is up.
Absolutely, my tail is always up. I'm a solution-focused, positive individual. I believe everybody should be, otherwise life just gets depressing. I have my ups and downs in life and in business. I know a lot of people, this is hurting them. It's, really the depth of feeling. I've had complete strangers come up to me and just give me a bear hug. 6-foot men that are just don't know you, but thanks for everything you guys have been doing. And I've never known in my 15 years of being in this industry a depth of feeling and anger, really, frankly, against this tax. It really is so fundamentally wrong on so many levels for so many people that we have to change it. It will change. I am convinced of that, having spoken to some very senior people that were behind the failed tax experiment in Ireland that saw a similar thing to Section 24, increase rents by 50% over 3 years before it was scrapped. Having spoken to people involved in creating that policy, and them telling me very clearly that yes, there was a direct correlation between this type of tax and rents going up and then the government scrapping it. So I'm convinced in my mind that there is going to be a U-turn. It is going to happen. When? If you had to ask me, I think it's probably 2019, 2020. 2019 January is going to be when people are going to be writing out checks to HMRC, and they're going to see, why has my tax bill gone up? And that's when the mass awareness will come. It's our job to try and bring it forward from there.
Yes, very good point. So I know that some of you out there are feeling despondent, but we want to reassure you that there is a long way to go. There is so much more work to be done. There is a lot of positive things to be working towards. Do not sit at home in isolation worrying. Come on board with the Tenant Tax crew. share your thoughts, your experiences, write to your MP, do all the things that we're recommending, take action, and together we are stronger, aren't we?
We will axe
and
the tenant tax.
we will axe it. So we do want you to stay engaged with the topic, and we're going to bring you updates regularly to keep you informed of where we are with the campaign. So thank you again, Steve.
Thanks, Vic.
Exciting times ahead. Even just talking to you, I feel a lot happier.
Good, wonderful.